Hi, Jeff here, the guy from Reston. How's it going? Anyways, we're going to talk about something that's pretty important because it's coming up in the news a lot, and it's about Israel and its conflict with the Arabs and the Palestinians in the region and what goes on behind it. And I saw this video on Prager University of how they define what's going on, where you have the Arabs who just want to kill the Jews, and you just want the Israel to basically uh, live in peace with its neighbors. And the whole thing behind this is the fact that you have to understand a little history. You're going to have to go back a few thousand years here, because that area of land never belonged to the Arabs. It always belonged to some other power, or some other people were in charge. The Arabs might have lived there, but they didn't own the land. It always belonged to somebody else. So if you want to go back far enough, actually, a portion of that land actually belonged to Egypt. And then after Egypt, the Romans, or I'm sorry, after Egypt, then the Greeks under Alexander consumed that area of land when he was expanding the Grecian Empire. The After the Greeks came the Romans. The Romans owned it, and then after Rome owned it, and Rome split and divided into two empires. The one empire fell. The Eastern Roman Empire became Constantinople. Ended up becoming Turkey because of the Muslim invasion. But then after Rome fell and the Dark Ages came, what happened was the Ottoman Turk Empire under the Muslim hordes came in and conquered that area of the land and owned it. And then during World War One, or I'd say no, before that, I'd say in the 19th century, by the 19th century, then it was the European powers that owned sections of that land. Matter of fact, Lebanon, Jordan, Iran, Iraq, all those neighboring nations right there, they basically were all lines drawn in the sand by the European powers. That's how those nation states existed. Before then, they didn't exist as nation states. So you have to understand that. And the area that was Israel, well, up until 1948, it was owned by the British Empire, and the empire set aside that area of land for Israel as the Jewish state because they had been promising them for almost a century. So that's what happened there. The Arabs didn't like it, and the day afterwards they attacked Israel, and little Israel repelled them, all of them. And that was Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and they all did. Now, the local Arab population, what did they do when the attack came? Because the neighboring Arab nations went to attack Israel, they told the Arabs, get out, leave, go. So what did the majority of those Arabs did? They went out and left, right? So then all these Arab nation states came in, including Persia, which is Iran, and tried to conquer little Israel. Little Israel kicked them all back. A country about the size of New Jersey kicked them all back, and then after that happened, basically, a precedent was set to recognize Israel's right to exist. But to this day, with the exception of Jordan, and Egypt, every other Arab nation, including the Palestinians, do not recognize the right of Israel to exist. Now, Israel has existed in that area in a different form, one way or the other. You want to go back thousands and thousands of years, they've existed there. Now, they may have existed in under the Grecian Empire, they were a conquered state, but they existed as a conquered state. If you want to go back before then, um, the Babylonians conquered them. That was Iraq. Modern day Babylon is Iraq. Um, the Babylonians conquered Israel, but they existed as a nation state um, before then. Um, so basically, you have to understand that there was no Arabs or Palestinians living there that proclaimed that land to be anything but where the Jews lived, or the Hebrews, or the term Hebrews, which means strange people. That's where that came from. Now, for everyone else that thinks that for some reason that the Palestinians have right to that area because of it's called Palestine, let me explain to you where Palestine came from. Palestine is what the Romans called the area. That's what the Romans called modern day Israel. They called it Palestine. Okay, that was their name for the state. It was there. That's where the name came from. And the Romans didn't pronounce it Palestine. They called it Palestine. Palestine was the correct way to say it. But that was the area that Rome named, which was already Israel. And Rome called it that. Now, the Arabs that lived there and stuff like that, most of them were nomadic herders, and they raised flocks of livestock, and they went from oasis to oasis, watering their flock, and they lived in tents. That was pretty much it. Mark Twain or Sam Clements, back in the 19th century, took a trip to that area of the land, and with a few exceptions, he says it's nothing but a giant desert. So there is nothing there other than the people who lived there, and the people who lived there had no government. They just lived on the land, you know. And for them to say that it's their land, how could it be your land? So, just because you live there doesn't mean it's your land. It's just like for instance, the American Indians in North America, they came over from Asia, from the land bridge from Asia to North America on the land bridge, and settled down into North America, all the way down into South America. But most of them, the ones that settled up in North America and the ones that were talking about the United States, they lived on the land. It was always there. They lived there, this and that. It wasn't until the European settlers came and landed on the eastern part of the United States and started moving in on the territory that they have always lived on. See, they never had to basically put documents up or anything else like that because it was free and open. Europeans came in, they thought it was free and open. So that's why that happened. Well, here's the same thing with the Palestinians. It was land, it was there, but it was always free and open. Nobody owned it other than the failed nations of Israel that had been there prior to that. So that's where all that came from. To this day, I hear people all the time, well, what about the Palestinians? I said, what about the Palestinians? I said, their land should have been annexed and given to Israel. And if they wanted to move in and be part of the nation Israel, that's up to them. If not, then they need to get the hell out and find another place to live. And, I'm sorry for displacing people, but, like I said, if the Arabs wanted peace, there'd be peace tomorrow. The problem is they don't want peace. All they want to do is kill Jews. The same thing, that's all they care about is killing Jews. So, anyways, for me to say that, that's going to offend a lot of people, but those are facts. They're true. They're undeniable. You can't dispute them. So, If I'm wrong, then someone basically put it up there. Anyways, this is Jeff, the guy from Reston. Uh, so long. Take care. Have a good night. Sayonara. Sayonara. Bye.